Bonjour. Bonjour. Bonjour à tout le monde. Alors, on va commencer la nouvelle session et on parlera surtout de l'artisanat grec et romain. Et alors, c'était un air très bon pour moi. Et je voudrais prier Madame Svetlana Derkakeva pour aller à commencer sa relation. S'il vous plaît, Madame.
Good afternoon, colleague. Do you hear me? Is it okay? Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. And I'd like to present a very small sujet about settlement Antigonia, mentioned by Stephen of Byzantium. Stephen of Byzantium, subverbo Antigonia, gives a list of 6 settlements called Antigonia. Among them, he mentioned Antigonia Bithynia near Daskylion, and Antigonia, the fortress of Cyzicus. Cyzicus is a large city on the southern coast of the Propontis, near the modern city of Banderma. In addition, Stephen points out subverbo Nicaea, that the city of Nicaea in Bithynia previously was called Antigonia. The same information gives Strabo also. Thus, according to Stephen of Byzantium, 3 settlements called Antigonia are concentrated in the area relatively narrow between the modern lake Iznik and the Gulf of Erdek. 2 of them, near Daskylion and the future Nicaea, were Bithynias. Antigonia near Daskylion and Antigonia, the Cyzicenes, fortress of the Cyzicenes, are not mentioned in other sources. So the question is there any confusion in this information? And what meant by Daskylion? Stephen subverbo Daskylion listed 5 settlements in Asia Minor, in Kari, in Traat, in Ionia, and near Bithynia, and on the border of Elite and Prusia. Then subverbo Daskylion. Stephen reports on the settlement Daskylia on Lake Daskylitis, modern the Lake of Kash. And finally, in the description of Brulion on the Propontis, Stephen mentioned a small town near Brulion that called Daskylion. In this list, we are interested in 3 that near Daskylion, Bithynia, Daskylia near the lake Daskylitis, and Daskylion on the Propontis. Concerning Propontis, Daskylos on the Propontis is reported by the list of the Athenian pharaohs by Pompony Mela and Pliny. Then Strabo wrote about Daskylion on the lake Daskylitis, modern Kash. This city, located in the area of the on the modern village of Ergili, in this area. And it was the seat of the satrap of Phrygia Pontina. And it's well attributed archaeologically. Concerning Antigone of the Cyzicenes, Stephen reported, the fortress is located about 30 stadia away from the sea, situated on the west of the city. This distance is approximately equal 9 kilometers. European travelers in Asia, Minor, Popok, and Sistine, believed that the Antigone fortress was situated near the modern Erdek, modern village of Erdek, on the not far from Cyzicus. And the distance is really about 9 kilometers, but they were confused by watching the remains of Byzantine fortress. And the distance is from Cyzicus, but not from the sea. Francis Heslop, after of the famous monography Cyzicus, denied this distance. And he supposed that it's an error of a copy of the Stephen. And he localized Antigone of the Cyzicenes in the upper Ezepus Valley, more than 40 kilometers away from the coast. On the other hand, based of the distance of 9 kilometers, Rade placed Antigone of the Cyzicenes near the modern village of Debleke, not far from the Kush Lake. He measured the distance of the to the southeast from Cyzicus. And it's about 11 kilometers from the modern Banderma Gulf. These two proposals were made earlier than in the middle of the 12th century. Dasculion near the Lake Daskylitis was discovered archaeologically. The Stephan's distance, about 9 kilometers, was measured probably along the road. There was a Roman coastal military road along the Propontis, and another road led near Lake Daskylitis into Asia Minor hinterland. In suggestion that mentioned by Stephen, Western Sea is the modern Erdek Gulf, and the coastline has not changed since antiquity. There is a mountain range on the coast. We can define the territory where the Antigone of the Cyzicenes was situated. This is an area to the west of Lake Daskylitis, between the lake and the Propontis. Thus, this distance from Antigone to the Cyzicenes the distance from Antigonia, Kyzikenes, and Daskylion on the Lake Daskylitis is about 12 or 15 kilometers. So it's not far from Daskylion. Thus, it's possible to associate Antigonia Kyzikenes with the Antigonia not far from Daskylion. And in this case, it need to refuse the remark Bithynia's mentioned by Stefan. The author of monograph Antigonus the One-Eyed and the creation of the Hellenistic state bellows, probably after the Royal Encyclopedia, pointed out that Antigonus founded in Asia Minor 2 settlements called Antigonia. The one which later became Nicaea, and the other one on the lake Daskylitis. But Bellows did not justify this opinion. Concerning Nicaea, in fact, Antigonus the One-Eyed only gave this name to a settlement that already existed. And according to Theodore of Sicily, Antigonus the One-Eyed helped the Kyzikenes during the war with Aridae. And Antigonus had a camp near the city, not far with the city. And then, in the edition Stefan Byzantini Ethnica edited by Bellerbeck, the authors supposed that Antigonia Nicaea and Antigonia near Daskylion are the same place. But it is not possible because the distance between Nicaea and the nearest Daskylios or Daskylion on the Propontis is almost 100 kilometers, and it does not accord with Stefan's words, not far from Daskylion. In conclusion, very probably that only one Antigonia on Lake Daskylitis existed. Antigonia of the Kyzikenes and Antigonia Bithynia near Daskylion are the same place, and Stefan's remark Bithynia's is a conclusion. Thank you for your attention.
Sì, dura tutto il giorno. Bonjour. Merci, madame. Et alors, je voudrais me faire parler monsieur Pietro Ortimini. Vous avez la possibilité de parler. Bonjour.
Good afternoon. I try to share my screen. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, let me thank the organizers for allowing me to participate in the conference. My presentation focuses on the Greek metrical inscriptions from Bithynia dated to the Imperial Age, that is between the 1st and the 3rd century AD. This presentation is part of a broader research project on the Greek metrical inscriptions from the Imperial Age, studied from the perspective of literary genres and metrical aspects, taking into consideration the geographical, archaeological, and socio-historical context. The results are examined to assess the spread of Greek culture in the territories of the empire and the value of such culture in different socio-historical contexts. In this presentation, part of the results relating to the corpus of Bithynia will be examined. The data collected may also be useful for a new edition of the corpus. The corpus of Greek metrical inscriptions from Bithynia dated to the Imperial Age is defined starting from the edition of Merkel-Baxtauber, published in 2001. Among the 119 inscriptions in this edition, the 112 inscriptions dated to the Imperial Age are collected. Until now, I have collected 29 inscriptions edited after the Merkel-Baxtauber edition. However, if you know of any cases of recently discovered inscriptions that have not been recorded in the Supplementum Epigraphicum Graecum or the Bulletin Epigraphique, please let me know. Most of the inscriptions come from the main cities of Bithynia, first Nicaea with 53 inscriptions, Nicomedia with 18 inscriptions, and Claudiopolis with 20. Therefore, most of the metrical inscriptions come from the areas that were more Hellenized, namely those places where Greek culture was more widespread through education, through the traditional classical paideia. As we will see, the majority of the inscriptions are epitaphs. The epigraphic supports are mostly limestone or marble steels, columns, funerary altars, sarcophagi, and limestone or marble bases. The typology and material characteristics of the epigraphic support play a crucial role in conveying the epigraphic message. The enjoyment of the monument implies a multisensory experience in which the type of support, the depictions, the layout assume a fundamental importance in conveying the poetic message. In this regard, a significant example is the epitaph of Asclepius from Nicaea. The text of the inscriptions is prominently highlighted within a relief frame in the shape of a tabula ansata, located at the center of the stele. Above the text, there is a depiction of the deceased and his wife, while below the text, there are other depictions, an amphora with a wine stem, a container with some kind of tools, possibly the work tools of the deceased, according to Kremer. The technique of drawing attention to the text, highlighting it within a tabula ansata, is also found in other cases, such as this epitaph for a child from Nicaea. As clearly demonstrated by the important studies of Gianfranco Agosti cited in the slide, the layout is also used to highlight the metrical nature of an epigraphic text, so that the readers of description can more easily realize that they are in front of a text in verses and not in prose. Two situations can be distinguished. Firstly, inscriptions in which the metrical structure is not highlighted by the layout, as you can see from the example in the slide, Nemesca, Ring, Lucia, Sesepi, end of the line, tata. Secondly, inscriptions in which the metrical structure is highlighted by the layout. The corpus analyzed shows two main typologies. The first one concerns cases in which each line corresponds to a verse. As you can see from the example in the slide, even though there is space available on the support, the text has been engraved in such a way that each line of writing corresponds to a verse. Urion ec plum est stisode terra caleiso. End of the line. The second typology concerns cases in which each verse is arranged on multiple lines. but is divided by based on the caesuras. That means based on the rhythmic articulation of the verse. As can be seen from the example in the slide, unfortunately, I have not found a better image, but this happens both with the caesuras of the hexameter, enta de gerasant italon, end of the line, catetaps da cruzas, and with the central caesura of the pentameter, oinoconon piston crestus apoptimenon, and the caesuras of the iambic trimeter, as can be seen in the epitaph of the rhetor and the poet Cornutus. Cornuton, end of the line, uto, end of the line, firmos, end of the line, antem ipsato. I have not found cases in which the pentameter is alighted in ecstasis with a typology of arrangement that becomes increasingly frequent in the imperial age. Then is worth considering the epigrams transmitted in the literary tradition, namely in the Anatolia Palatina. First, the funerary epigrams in honor of the priest Sacerdos. The lemma in the Anatolia Palatina informs us that the epigrams were inscribed on the tomb of the deceased. The tomb was supposed to be built in the form of an obelisk. Unfortunately, the monument is lost. As Merkel Backstabber suggests, we may have to imagine a monument similar to the obelisk of Gaius Cassius Philiscus from Nicaea, dated to the imperial age. Recurring themes in the epigrams include the grandeur of the tomb, ton pronomachia ton tumbon, the public religious function carried out by the deceased, aton enizois bemoamenon hierophantan, and his death from his homeland in Attica, and his wife, his companion in death. The last epigram is dedicated to his wife, who is praised and defined as more famous than Penelope, Thesprin Penelopes, Theseia oidoteren. The other epigram transmitted in the Anatolia Palatina is the epitaph of Hipparchus, written by Diodorus, an epigrammatist of the Garland of Philip. However, unlike the previous epigram, in this case, we have no evidence to confirm whether the text was originally inscribed or not. As Valentina Garulli has shown, it is not possible to determine from linguistic and literary analysis whether an epitaph was inscribed or not, since epigraphic and literary epigrams share a common poetic language that does not allow for distinctions. In these cases, in the absence of literary sources or the epigraphic support itself, the epigrams transmitted by literary tradition should be excluded from the edition of the corpus or isolated in an appendix. Let's now talk about the literary genres and the recipients of inscriptions. Most of the metrical inscriptions are epitaphs. About 40 epitaphs are dedicated to auroi, 40 epitaphs to men, 12 to women, 13 to spouses, and 3 to siblings. There are more epitaphs dedicated to men, 71, than to women, 22. Among the 130 epitaphs, in 27 cases, the social status or profession of the deceased is explicitly mentioned. I have gathered these cases in the slide. There are local administrators, notable citizens, soldiers, physicians, rhetors, priests, as well as people from more humble social backgrounds, such as tailors, farmers, dancers, mimes, and musicians. The epitaph written in verse has the function of celebrating the deceased, not only with regard to their role in society, their moral qualities, and the prestige of their family, but also in relation to their cultural background. In fact, the literary elements in metrical inscriptions have the function of indicating the deceased's membership in a certain culture, the Greek culture, spread with the classical paideia, which was mainly the domain of the middle upper class of the population. Showing off Greek culture in an epitaph also gives prestige to the deceased in socio-cultural terms. An example can be found in the epitaph of Epicrates, which combines his judicial activity with his agricultural work. To praise the qualities of the deceased, not only is his role in society mentioned, but also his knowledge of Greek culture. Epicrates cultivated his lands, os Hesiodos katedeixen, as Hesiod talked. Until now, I have currently identified only 8 dedications in the analysis of the corpus. As we have seen for the epitaphs, even in the dedications, the use of verses allows for a display of cultural belonging through poetic quotations, stylistic choices, and the use of literary and metrical forms. A significant example is the dedication of an altar and an eagle to Zeus by the notable citizen Nicadas, who held various public offices in the city of Nicaea. We are facing a monument on which 2 inscriptions are placed regarding the same subject. Unfortunately, the stone is lost. On this monument, on this altar, one inscription is in verse while the other is in prose. Both the prose and verse inscriptions convey the same epigraphic message. In other words, the dedication in prose would be sufficient to allow the reader to fully understand the epigraphic message. However, Nicadas feels the need to add another dedication in verse. The dedication in verse is much less informative than the dedication in prose regarding the public offices held in life by Nicadas, but it serves to express his belonging to Greek culture with the use of the Homeric hemistichos aieton iupsipete in the first hemistichos of the first pentameter, and with the use of the expression chronida pater that also derives from epic. In addition to epitaphs and dedications, the corpus also includes 2 oracles of Apollo Clarius and a hymn to the Egyptian deity Anubis. Now, let's move on to discussing literary and metrical forms. As regards the use of meters, the use of the elegiac couplet and the dactylic hexameter katastikon prevails. There are also numerous hexameters used together with the pentameter outside of the form of the elegiac couplets and together with iambic meters. The iambic meters katastikon are minority but still employed, and to a lesser extent the Sotadian meters. In the analyzed corpus, apart from a doubtful case, I have not found trochaic meters, which are sometimes used in metrical inscriptions. More common than in the literary epigrammatic tradition is the use of different meters in the same epigram, as in the following example. On the stone is engraved the epitaph for the priest of Zeus Agelas. The first 7 verses are composed in dactylic hexameters and are dedicated to the praise of the deceased. Lines 8 to 10 are written in iambic trimeters with a change of meter that also corresponds to a change in content. In this section of the epitaph, those who built the tomb and took care of the burial of the deceased are remembered. In line 10, Unilla is mentioned, a young girl dead prematurely, whom the priest had taken care of in life. The epitaph closes with an elegiac couplet with another change of meter. In the elegiac couplet, the memory of the relationship between the girl and the priest is remembered. The majority of metrical inscriptions are written in elegiac couplets and dactylic hexameters, katastikon. The length of the text tends to be less than 15 verses. The authors of metrical inscriptions tend to share the formal characteristics of the literary epigram, which in the Imperial Age is characterized by a strongly conservative resumption of the model of the Hellenistic literary epigram, with the 2 fundamental formal characteristics that are the use of elegiac couplets and short texts according to the principle of oligostichia. Also generally following the formal characteristics of the literary epigram, however, the authors of epigraphic epigrams show greater freedom and independence from the literary epigrammatic model. The literary form used are the following: elegiac couplets, hexameter catasticon, iambic meters, catasticon, trimeters and polyambics, elegiac couplets plus hexameters, elegiac couplets plus pentameters, elegiac couplets plus iambic meters, and hexameters plus pentameters or elegiac couplet plus iambic meters and sotadians. Also hexameters plus iambic meters. Moreover, the authors of metrical inscriptions make a greater use of longer forms, exceeding 15 or 16 verses, also written in meters different from the elegiac couplet and the hexameter catasticon, especially in Imperial Age in the regions of Anatolian Peninsula and Egypt. There are two ways in which the authors of metrical inscriptions amplify the epigraphic message. The first method involves inscribing 2 or more epigrams on the same monument, all related to the same subject. This typology was defined by Marco Fantuzzi in Italian iscrizione doppia, maybe in English double inscription. The second method involves composing long epigrams, the so-called epigrammata longa, which exceed the standard length of the literary epigram, usually limited to 15 or 16 lines, with few exceptions. The highest level of amplification of the epigraphic message occurs when an epigramma longum is inscribed together with other epigrams on the same monument. One such example is the epitaph of Tertulla from Claudiopolis, composed of a long epigram written in 17 hexameters, followed by another shorter epigram. As for the use of meters in double descriptions, meters other than the hexameter and the elegiac couplet are usually employed to vary the form of the epigrams inscribed on the same monument. In the Imperial Age, I have identified only 3 cases where 2 inscriptions in iambic meters are inscribed on the same monument. One of these cases is the epitaph of Secundus from Nicaea. The epitaph consists of 2 distinct epitaphs separated by a blank space on the stone. The first epigram constitutes the actual epitaph, while the second is dedicated to the warning against tomb raiders. The widest formal distance between literary and epigraphic epigrams is found in the epigrammata longa written in meters different from the elegiac couplet and the hexameter catasticon. In these cases, the author departs from the model of literary epigrams, both in terms of the use of meters and in terms of the length of the text. Between the Hellenistic and Imperial Age, I have identified 12 cases, 10 of which date from the 1st to the 3rd century AD, with an iambic, sotadian, or trochaic meters. From Bithynia comes a long epigram in 18 sotadian verses for the mime Crispo. The epitaph is divided into 2 sections. The first section from lines 1 to 10 is dedicated to interesting general considerations on the function of funerary monuments, while the second section from lines 11 to 18 contains the actual epitaph with the praise of the deceased. Finally, I would like to at least mention a topic that is still very studied, that is the relationship between prose and poetry in inscriptions. In the study of the corpus, I tried to distinguish 2 groups. The first, in which we can notice the poet's will to write in verse, but these verses are irregular due to the poet's poor ability in writing verses, as in this epitaph in the slide. The second group, instead, concerns those cases in which the inscription is predominantly in prose, but there are rhythmic elements, mostly dactylic, but there are also cases of iambic rhythmic elements. An example of this second typology is the epitaph of Curion, mainly in prose. However, upon reading it, dactylic rhythmic elements can be recognized. For example, upo tesofros un S, epilesomen mem scarin, tesses udera tessia un S, usseni domantis pesa, etc. Until now, on this subject, more than answers, I only have many questions. How is a metrical inscription defined? Can a prose inscription with rhythmic elements be defined as a metrical inscription? Can a prose inscription with literary quotation in verse be considered a metrical inscription? How do we distinguish cases of defective versification from cases of rhythmic prose? How were rhythmic elements recognized in prose by readers of inscriptions? How were they read, in prose or in verse? With these last questions, which will be a large part of my future research, I have concluded. Thank you for your attention.
Pietro, grazie molti, Pietro. Thank you very much for this very extensive lecture. I am just holding the microphone right now on behalf of Dr. Doğru, who is now sort of busy with his grandson, actually, with Leonardo and with Trudy. So he's a little bit busy. Sorry about this. Now, I would like to invite our next speaker, again from Italy, our friend and our colleague, that we work together so intensively, Dr. Paolo Puppo from Ministero dell'Istruzione, dell'Università e della Ricerca, again from Genoa, from Italy. She's going to speak about collecting in antiquity a gem of papyrus for Trajan. I think Paolo is here, so please, Paolo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope my presentation condividete di schermo, condividi. I hope.
No, it works out very well. Don't worry. It only takes a little bit. As you know, it's a little bit slow at the beginning. Yes. Just click on, exactly. Perfect. Perfect, perfect.
No?
Perfect, there you go.
It's okay?
Yes, it is perfectly okay. Go for it. Thank you for that.
I would like to thank the organizer of this conference for accepting my paper. In 111 AD, Pliny the Younger was given the post of governor of Bithynia, a Roman province since 74 BC. At the time of Trajan, the region was united with Pontus and constituted an important province, especially for its roads and strategic location between the borders of the Danube to the north and those of the Euphrates to the southeast. Precisely in Bithynia, still governor Pliny died unexpectedly in 113 or 114. From this province, he sent a series of letters to Trajan that constitute an important source for knowledge of the area. In this report, we put a focus on letter decima of the epistolary where Pliny informs Trajan that he looked for a gem that a certain Calidromus, a slave, claimed to possess, but which had been stolen from him. The gem had the image of Pacorus, the king of the Parthian Empire from 78 to 110, born around 61 AD, the son and the successor of Vologases I, that reigned from 51 to 78 AD. Pliny would have liked to send it to Trajan, just as he had sent nugget, which Calidromus himself said was taken from a Parthian curry, and this nugget he marked with his ring, which bears the imprint of a quadriga. The soldiers Apuleius, who is stationed in Nicomedia, wrote to meet at somebody named Calidromus, while he was detained at the backers Maximus and Dionysius, in whose service he had placed himself, took refuge at the foot of your statue, and brought before the magistrates revealed that he had previously been a slave of Laberius Maximus, captured by Susagus in Mesia, and thence sent as a present by Decebalus to Pacorus, king of Parthia, in whose service he had remained many years, but afterwards he had made his escape and got to Nicomedia. Brought before me, having repeated the same things to me, I thought I had to send it to you, which I did with some delay, because a cameo was to be sought, which said had been stolen from him, reproducing the figure of Pacorus with his royal ornaments. I wanted to attack this to the sending, if it could be found, as I am sending you a stone, which he says had got from the Parthian mines. It is marked with the design of my ring, whose image represents a quadriga. This story discussed here of Calidromus has been considered by some as evidence of an alliance or closeness between Dacia and Parthia, according to Kunz, or of Roman suspicion of this alliance, as Carbo Garsus Rodriguez San Juan, as well as evidence of gem production in the Persia of the Arsacids. During the later part of his father's reign, Pacorus ruled the Parthian Empire along with him. After the death of Vologases I in 78, Pacorus became the sole ruler, but was quickly met by a revolt by his brother Vologases II, which lasted until the latter's defeat in 80. In 79, Pacorus' rules was contended by another Parthian prince, Artabanus III, whom he had defeated by and won. A third Parthian contender, Osroes I, appeared in 109. The following year, Pacorus was succeeded by his son Vologases III, who continued his father's struggle with Osroes I over the Parthian crown. Like his father, Pacorus continued the same policy of the prominent former Parthian king Artabanus II, which including increasing the economic source of the Parthian Empire by establishment a new trade system and strengthening relations with other powers such as China. Parthian interest also continued to grow in eastern lands of Bactria and the Hindu Kush. We know that the gemstone mentioned by Pliny bears a portrait of Pacorus, the king of Parthia, because Pliny the Younger writes so. The question is very difficult because there are no reports of gems with Pacorus' portrait. I have found only 2 citations about the gems with the portrait of Pacorus. The first is a full-length portrait of a Parthian king, now in the possession of Mr. Uzielli, according long then in the publication The Journal of Roman Studies on large oriental onyx of the finest quality, the 3 strata of the stone being perfect in color and distinctness. The second note is as follows from Natia Fifia, King Pacorus Bacur of Lazi. In 1974, Zinvali expedition in Lazi, Georgia, unearthed the iron ring with the carnelian engraved gem of size 2 per 1,5 centimeter. Upper, not engraved part of the gem as an inscription Bakuram. This inscription was reconstructed by Kaushivili as follows: Bakur Amnas, Bakurus lamb. Kaushivili did not try to identify this Pacorus with neither the king of Lazica nor with any Pacorus Bacur mentioned. Reason is obvious. Pacorus of carnelian gem is not mentioned as a king, but in the letter of Plinius to Trajan, Pacorus is mentioned as a king of Parthian. As for the date, she took into consideration the form of a letter, recessed angles without ending, with wide endings, and dated back the inscription by the 1st centuries in general. Lord Kipanidze assumed that the artifact should be dated back to the 2nd, 3rd century and is of local origin. In conclusion, the letter of Plinius the Younger to Trajan turns out to be a valuable account of Persian glyptics of the Arsacid age, but of these glyptics we haven't found any gem with the portrait of Pacorus in this moment. In connection with the King Pacorus II, we have a series of coins where the usage of the image of the Greek goddess Tyche on the reverse of Parthian coins became more regular than that of the seated king with a bow, specifically on the coin minted at Ecbatana. Tyche was either a representation of the Iranian goddess Ashi or Anaita. In this slide, we have 4 exemplars of coins of Pacorus II, but in this moment, I have not found any gems of Pacorus, King Parthian. Thank you very much for your attention, and write me please any information about gem of Pacorus, King of Parthian. Thank you very much for all.
Thank you, Paolo, for this nice presentation of a gem, a single gem, which is amazing, actually, that we're collecting through this evidences much on the archaeology of Bithynia. So we appreciated your participation on this, actually. Thank you for this. Grazie multi. Well, if Dr. Bora is still not there, and if he's still is busy with his grandson, Leonardo, then I will be the one who is going to present himself. Because the next speaker is me and Gülseren. And we will be talking about terracottas from Bithynia. But let me say some words about Gülseren. Gülseren was my PhD student many years ago. She completed her PhD here in Izmir and then became the director of the Department of Archaeology in Sinop, in northern part of Turkey, in the ancient territories of Paphlagonia, actually. And she's still there, trying to become an associated professor right now and working with me intensively as Eva. And now I'm going to speak about our joint project together, which is actually museum study of many years ago. And I would like to just present our results about that. Let me just first show you my screen, and I'll just try to arrange it first. Yeah, can you now see this screen share? Let me just check it first. Can you guys wave it? Because I have some difficulties here to wave it.
I cannot
actually.
see it. There goes.
Oh, you cannot see it yet? Okay.
No, no, we can. No, we can. Yeah.
You can now? Okay, perfect. This is great. This is great to know. Thank you. Okay, let me just begin with my presentation. I'm going to be very quick because I'm organizing the conference, doing my chairmanship, and then doing a lecture. This is too much. So the title is Hellenistic and Roman Terracotta Figurines from Nicomedia and Bithynia. Yeah, let me just say some words about the collection. We would like to work on Bithynian choroplastic as a study material. We choose the terracotta figurines in the Archaeological and Ethnographic Museum of Kocaeli in Izmit, ancient Nicomedia, which is established in 2006. It's a pretty much new museum, actually, in northwestern part of Turkey, with lots of material, especially from Nicomedia, but also from some other small sites in Bithynia. But there are also some finds from different regions of Turkey, such as from Istanbul or from Bursa in this museum. But it's a very nice collection with lots of different material gems. And choroplastic is one of the most remarkable group of material in this museum. And Gülseren had a permit to study this material. So I'm going to report about that now. Well, the material gems that we have within this choroplastic group was cross. We have one cross. Then we have ideal figurines like mythological figurines such as Aphrodite, Eros, or satyrs. Actually, one satyr. Then we have realistic figurines, singular personalities such as a theater actor or a bust, as well as animal figurines, birds, and 2 or 3 toys altogether. So this is a general view of these terracottas. Most of them are actually in display. And in the display, we have like almost 25 to 30 pieces. And most of the diagnostic ones actually are being displayed in the museum. And I will not show you all the pieces that we worked. I will just give you a selection of the material here. Excuse me. Let me just start with this one. It's a seated cross on a wheel from the late 6th, early 4th century BC, 5th century BC, with a white slip. I guess it's not from Nicomedia, but it's from perhaps from Astakos, because as all you know, the archaic and classical center of Nicomedia or Izmit was Astakos, like 2 or 3 kilometers far from Nicomedia. It is perhaps from there or from the necropolis site Çatalca near Istanbul. Perhaps it is a transferred find from there to Izmit. Let me also say some words. I'm sorry, just before I begin, I'm sorry, I forgot to add this. We have archaic, classical, Hellenistic, and Roman material. Most of the figurines are from the 2nd and 3rd centuries and from the graves. They are mostly funerary finds. And as I said, some of the material were transferred from the Archaeological Museum of Istanbul and found in the necropolis areas of Çatalca or Enos, modern Enes, on the borderline to Greece or other sites in Eastern Thrace. Very few figurines are polychromic and bear painting marks. Most of them are local products of the Roman period and based on classical Greek models. No important terracotta has been detected so far. Okay, so let me just begin again. Sorry about this. Well, my first one was this cross on a wheel, and then second one was the strapped priestess with a huge polos, which is actually a Roman terracotta based on classical model, as you see here. And it could also be a regular person. Maybe I shouldn't really exaggerate about the person's role, but it seems to me that the polos is more expressed. So I feel it should be something special. Then the third example is this actor holding a mask. And as you see, this is an interesting piece because we have a similar parallel to that actually from Tunisia, from Border Museum, which I found on the internet accidentally. Sorry for the picture. As I said, the figurines holding a mask is not very, I would say, popular in Asia Minor. So that's a unique example. The interesting thing and the new thing about the piece is that his garment. The garment is not very typical for Asia Minor for this type of figurines. It is a mixture of soldier military garments plus actor garments type of thing. The fourth one is in headless Aphrodite, Venus, probably holding a mirror. Again, from Roman period, I found a parallel to this. I guess it's in the same position. It's in the same category as this Aphrodite here. So I believe sehr gut Herr Bora, herzlichen Dank. I believe this is an important piece for Nicomedia or for Izmit generally, for Bithynia, because we have several Aphrodites. Here I have a second example, this one, where I found this piece as a comparanda. Well, most of the pieces are actually, I would say, degenerated or their features, their physiognomic and physical features are not very visible. And they're being like sort of worn, especially the slip parts were worn. But that one is an interesting one actually, with base within a dolphin, with a dolphin image, which is actually rare for Asia Minor, but for other places. And I think the closest parallel is this one from the Walters Art Gallery in the United States. Then we got another torso of Aphrodite from the Roman period. I believe this should be an Aphrodite, my impression. Especially the, this nudity is actually very typical of Aphrodite at that time in the Roman period and based on Hellenistic, of course, models. This one is an interesting piece, a winged Cupid. Again, a Roman period piece based on a Hellenistic model. I could not really find an exact parallel for it, but I think that there are some parallels in Greece for that. And we believe this is a Persephone holding a granite apple. Again, a classical piece based on Roman piece based on classical model, and we have lots of sirens in Asia Minor, and one of the siren is also located at this museum. They've been imitated Murenian type of sirens of early Hellenistic period, but I guess this is a Roman piece, I believe. a degenerated Roman piece. So it's interesting to see this type of thing here in this part of Turkey. It is also possible that it was found in Western Turkey and was transferred to Izmit, to Nicomedia. Perhaps it's not Bithynian at all archaeologically. This one is an interesting one, a seated grotesque figure with two very, I would say, curious legs. So I believe it should be a grotesque figure. Well, grotesque figures are not seldom in Turkish museums. I also published a very short note about that in Antique Welt, about the grotesque figures from Smyrna. And that's the second example. I guess this grotesque figure in a dancing position with an head with a physiognomy, which is actually similar to an ape in a sort of a girly body, in a female body, and perhaps with a dolphin. That's an interesting combination or interesting way of iconography. Then we have a very typical child embracing woman type of terracotta, which is actually very popular in Asia Minor during the Hellenistic period, but I guess this is a Roman example. The other example is an adorant, I guess, again from the Roman period, and the garment as well as all the costumes are actually very typical for Roman period, which are imitating the Hellenistic models. There's this realistic bust is a seldom is a unique piece of the museum with its beardless, clean-shaven man with an approaching maturity, which I date into the 1st century AD. So I believe that's it's a very important piece because it's one of the very few realistic pieces that we have in this museum. And I also would like to know who it should be, actually, because for most of the terracottas in Asia Minor, it is difficult for us to say, to define the person that they were symbolizing. This one I would like to see as a satyr or satyr-like creature with his typical, the upper head structure, as well as I got 3 more heads, which I believe they should be cupid heads, very typical cupid heads like this one here. But again, Roman period pieces based on Greek models, especially Hellenistic Murenian models. Here I have, I think, an Aphrodite again, with 2 further heads. So we got altogether 6 heads. This one is an interesting piece, a pair. Again, I guess late Hellenistic or Roman time period, which is very rare for this part of Asia Minor. Then I have a different type of animals, like those ones here, a doe and a cock, as well as, again, another doe, as well as a horse. We find lots of horse figurines in Asia Minor, especially in cult places related to Poseidon, but also a doe again, which is, according to some others, which should be related to the female spirit in funerary context of Hellenistic and Roman Asia Minor. Then again, a cock as a toy, perhaps. Izmit Museum is reflecting a nice collection of Greco-Roman terracotta choroplastic art of Bithynia. And we find several different types that are actually usually to be found also in other parts of Turkey. So from this collection, I cannot really say, some specific things about the Bithynian choroplastic, except that we find some, very common figurine types as in other parts of Asia Minor. So I would like to thank you for your attention for this.
Alors, merci, cher Ergun, pour très riche série de petites figurines. On peut naturellement reconnaître des types qui sont très répandus, mais il y a sans doute des inventions, des caractéristiques de l'âge mineur, né? Je crois. Et je n'ai pu écouter toute ta présentation. Est-ce que tu as trouvé trace d'une production, d'une fabrication locale ou non?
Oui, d'accord. Je voudrais répondre à cette question en anglais parce qu'il y a beaucoup de peuples ici qui ne peuvent pas parler français. I would like to answer this question in English. Well, I would like to say, well, in the museum collection, we have so far no molds, and but from some Turkish rescue excavations and surveys in the region in Bithynia, there are some reports about the molds in the region. At the same time, in one of the books of John Walker Hayes, I guess in his 1972 book, this legendary book on late Roman pottery, he reports about one mold that he has seen in the Museum of Balıkesir, which is not in the territory of Bithynia, but in Mysia. But he explicitly says it should be somewhere, local chroroplastic workshop, an atelier de terre cuite in this landscape. At the same time, Bailey mentions this too, based on the material from British Museum. So most of the archaeological knowledge about the local chroroplastic workshops here in Bithynia, we become from outside of Turkey, especially from the British collections. And Anatolian archaeology so far is not that as good as, to answer this question yet. Merci.
Il y a autre question? Any question? Non. Tout le monde est convaincu. Alors, faisons cette petite interruption, une pause, non?
Bu ara Dr. Krinu has a comment about my speech. She says, "Thank you very much. I would like to notice that on slide 5, the figure does not seem to be a seated cross, but a seated female figure, like a Koran, perhaps." Well, I thought this should be a cross. I'll check this once again. Thank you very much, Eleni. I should check it once again.
Okay, so should we take a break until 2:40?
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Very good idea. Very good idea.
Good, okay.
So, grazie e farista poli to everybody. And see you.